Hey there YouTube, I'm Yukitsu, this is Yukitsu Times. Welcome to my channel, welcome to more Battlefleet Gothic. So this time, of course, we're talking about the Space Marines. Again, they're all identical, so you don't have to worry about me switching chapters, but I do like the Dark Angels. But yeah, we're going to talk about how to play them a little bit in ranked and a little bit of what makes them unique. Now, one of the interesting things about them is their composition there. They've got no battle cruisers, which is a really interesting thing because battle cruisers are a great tier to have in ranked. Their light cruisers are also something that I don't particularly like. The reason is that the stats on these guys, they've got 400 hit points, which is very, very vulnerable, especially in today's environment. The fact that they also cannot put out any fighters at all other than through upgrades makes them really, really vulnerable to enemy ordnance, which is not a good thing. Now, out of these guys, the Vanguards, the thing is you can't give any of these a meaningful favor. The reason is, of course, that you can't put favors on more than one ship. You can put each favor on one ship. So I think that you should be focusing slightly on the cruiser tier of ship. That's where things get a little bit better. They've got a little bit more hull value. They've got more of a few things. They're still pretty slow, 188 by contrast. These guys, 225 speed. That makes them so they can catch up to certain things. But I think that cruiser tier is good enough there. The one problem is that you don't have any access to something like a Nova Cannon, which I think would make these guys a lot better. But, you know, the thing is, you're missing out on a lot of the elements that would help protect you against Tau Ordnance, which means that you'll get absolutely shredded by those sorts of ships. Very, very risky taking these guys. I think that they're going to have a lot of trouble, but at the same time, they've got a lot of things that make them pretty strong. So it's going to be up to you to figure out a way to make up for those deficiencies. So, yeah, we're going to go ahead and take ourselves some cruisers here. Now, of course, you've got the Mark 1 here that's got a strong carrier component to it. Unfortunately, the only thing you can do with these is assault boats. Assault boats are extremely good, but honestly, that's not really enough necessarily to carry a game. They've got the Prow Bombardment Cannon turret. The Prow Bombardment Cannon turret, very, very good damage per second from just one gun, 3 damage per second with 22.5% critical chance. Decent range, decent accuracy, good angle of fire there. And their broadsides are quite good there. Instead, you could also take the Mark II there, torpedoes. Torpedo option for the Space Marines is one of the ways they can deal with long-range fleets. If they take tons of auger probes, they can start launching out tons of prow-heavy torpedoes. This is hard countered by certain people, but not very many. Strike Cruiser Mark III is the last option, and this adds on a heavy prow lance instead of anything. This has the 3 damage per second, just like the Prow Bombardment Cannon. The thing is, the Prow Bombardment Cannon, you also get one of those. This replaces the torpedoes, which I think are just a little bit better, or the carriers, which are also, I think, a little bit better. It is cheaper than the other variants, though, so if you want a cheap ship, this is pretty okay. Combining the Prow Bombardment Cannon turret with this lets you deal some pretty decent front damage per second against shields and stuff like that, so that could be good for that purpose. What I honestly think I'm going to be taking is the Mark 1s here. We want fairly expensive ships when we're taking this because we don't really want to try and take a battleship necessarily. We'll see how many points we have left over, so we might switch one over or some of them over, but let's go ahead and take 4 of these. And I do tend to spam these ships here, so let's go ahead and get Squadron Sergeants. We want Servitors, and since the guns on this are pretty high crit, if you take Master Gunner, this actually increases the chance to critical by 75%, so this one gun goes up from a 22.5% chance to crit to something pretty close to 50% chance of causing a critical. They do cause permanent criticals, so yeah, this is actually a really, really deadly weapon. Let's go ahead into our support stuff here. We definitely want the Stormhawk Squadrons. And you either need to have the micro warp jumps, or you need to have the enhanced induction cells, or you need to have the stasis bomb. Any of those sorts of things is pretty important for the Space Marines. Recon and augers aren't too important for me since I'm not going for a heavy ordnance strategy. Of course, it would help for a carrier play, but you know, we'll deal with that later. So we're going to go ahead and use, I think enhanced induction cells is going to be the one that we want here. For upgrades, you've got your typical here, typical stuff there, but you could also go for a very durable ship with a Voss pattern, void shields, and then shield upgrades. The Empire gets better shield upgrades because their base shields are a little bit better, same with the Tau, because they've got 200 base shields essentially. This is quite good though, getting the squadron refill. Chapter banner could be potentially good. It's just, you know, a lot of situations where it's not. I think that improving our vision range is good. I think that improving our special orders is really, really strong still for these guys. Could go belt armor or something like that. You could also go extra turrets. The turret value on these guys is pretty okay. It's nothing spectacular or anything like that, but it is pretty okay. So Voss Powder and Void Shields. The thing is that taking these first isn't really super, super good. You would want to take either the additional Void Shield generator or the auxiliary shield capacitors. Ideally, you want all three, but we can only afford to take two, so we'll take these two. So take that sort of thing. We'll go into our favors here. Now, we're going to get one of each of these, but the question is if we were going to end up dipping into battleships. I think that this totals out to less than a 2,000 point ship, though. Or 1,000 point ship. No, it is a 1,000 point ship. I wasn't thinking straight there. So, the Master of Sanctity, let's check what this actually did. I forget which one this one was. Ship is immune to every enemy assault action for a limited period, and the Master of Sanctity unlocks the Master of Sanctity crew member. I forget what the hell that was, actually. So we should probably actually raise the duration of the Word of the Empire skill by 5 seconds per level. What is the duration of this normally? Because this isn't actually a very strong ability, in my opinion. 30 seconds, so we could upgrade that to 45 seconds on a 180-second cooldown. Honestly, I don't really... this ability is pretty weak, so this is why I don't really pay too much attention to that. Alright, so let's go ahead and give these guys the Chief Librarian, potentially. This one actually is really good, with the Chief Librarian crew maxed out. You can basically just point and click it at a guy, and they could potentially mutiny. So we could go ahead and take that on one of these ships here.
I have seen into your mind and found you worthy of command.
Go ahead with the Squadron Sergeants there, and we'll go ahead and take Servitors, since we don't really need the Master Gunner or the Space Marines. For this sort of ship here, again, we're going to be looking towards having the Stormhawk Squadrons just as protection. The induction cells try and catch up to things, which, it really is a problem for Space Marines, I find. Not as big a problem as it is for others, but if you're ever up against Eldar or something like that, if you're up against the current way people play Tau or something like that, that's a real problem. I think that, they need to give more mobility options to factions like this. Alright, so we got 6,000 points left, and I think that we can afford, if we're not getting chapter upgrades to these guys, at least one battleship. So let's go ahead and check out our battle barges. So the Mark I has those bombardment cannon turrets. You'll note that these guys 150 speed, which is not actually that bad in all things considered. They're the very heavy macro battery cannons, very good damage per second on these. So one to each flank, super heavy proud torpedo launcher, ordnance launch bay. This only has 3 launch bays for a capital ship. That's not that great, or a battleship that's not that great. This is the Lance variant of it. Lances are actually quite good right now, but this is still giving up an awful lot for that. And the reason that Lances are good is because they ignore armor. This has the bombardment cannon turrets, and the bombardment cannon turrets have more damage per second, I find. So these are 1 damage per second each. This is 3 damage per second. Still pretty accurate, not, of course, 100% accurate, but they've also got that high critical chance, so these guys are really, really good. So we'll go ahead and take the Battle Barge Mark I. I do think it's a better ship out of the two. Then we can look into these things here. Master of the Forge here. It gains 1 additional upgrade slot to the ship, and unlocks the Master of the Forge ship crew plus 1 upgrade slot to the ship per level. So that's really expensive on a battleship. Takes up too much renown, so we're instead going to put the chapter banner on this guy, chapter master, if you want to think about it that way. Going to fully upgrade Azrael over here. This gives us really big bonuses to lock on target and stuff like that. Squadron Sergeants, and actually no, we don't want Squadron Sergeants here, reconditioning there. This is why it's a little bit tricky. We want the Master Gunners, just because when you're combining Master Gunner with the 3 bombardment cannon turrets, this thing pumps out criticals at nobody's business. And then we need Servitors because we want these ships on special orders as much as is possible. Alright, so after that, this ship, again, you just need to have these, you just have to. We're going to go ahead and take a micro warp jump in the induction cells, and we're going to take a recon beacon. So this ship is capable of chasing things down to a certain extent. It's not great at it, but you can get the job done with it. Alright, so expanded vision, expanded special orders. I need to make sure that I've got expanded special orders on everything here. Right, yeah, good. And these upgrades. So we've got 2,000 points left. That took us so many points that we can't really add another battleship and upgrade it in that same way. So what we're going to do is take a cruiser here. Going to add Master of the Forge there.
The Tower of Angels has blessed this vessel.
All those upgrade slots, so good. Alright, and then Servitors, I think, is what we're going to get on this ship. Same as, I believe, these ones. Yes, it is. except for this one, which has like Asmodai, who's useless. Alright, so let's go ahead and grab these up here. Like, the fact that you need to take the Stormhawk Squadron to protect your ships against ordnance is really rough, because it would be nice to be able to get that in some other way for the Space Marines, but we'll see. Alright, so we'll grab that. We'll grab that. And then we can make this one like have some special attributes that are pretty unique to it, just because it's got so many other ones. I think that something like extra boarding actions is pretty strong in general sense. We can also go with the extra troop value. I don't really think we need it though. I think you start with 70. Yeah, we start with 70. That's pretty high. Auxiliary shield capacitors could be quite good there. I'm pretty sure that this was just... Yeah, this is only for lightning strikes. Now, Space Marines, if I recall correctly, have an extra all assault actions. I'm pretty sure they get an extra assault action for their size category. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's orcs only. Looks like instead they get surgical strike. All assault actions consider the enemy troop value reduced by 10. Chance to destroy target enemy subsystems are quadrupled instead of doubled. Okay, well, I thought they had something else. What? How do they get extra boarding actions? Maybe they don't. I must be going insane. I thought they did. Alright, so we're going to ignore my insane ramblings there for a second. Let's go ahead and get one ship that can chase a little bit better there. Go ahead and take the efficient plasma thrusters. Makes it just a little bit faster than its brethren there. And we can afford a couple other skills here. So let's go ahead and take the belt armor. Because if this ship's going to be going off on its own, it's kind of important that this thing can tank through a little bit more than other ships, and we'll also go ahead and give it the better regeneration on shields there. Alright, so this ship down here is going to be a little bit shafted because of the way we've been upgrading our ships there, but that's fine. Let's go ahead and upgrade it up there anyway. Guns on this thing are pretty decent still, so it doesn't really matter too much that we're not upgrading ideally. I'm not sure if I want the skills more or I want the upgrades, but let's go ahead and get all our upgrades down on this guy. I think we can get both, actually. I think we just cap out barely. Yeah, 50. Okay, so we can take both of these. Oops. Alright, my OCD will compel me to do this. Alright, so we can't take any more favors. Like, they're grayed out for multiple reasons. Like, we can't afford them, but we also aren't allowed to take more than one of each of them. So let's go ahead and grab ourselves another battle barge, just in case one of ours gets killed. We'll go ahead and pop in our squadron sergeants, servitors, and master gunners. And we're just going to throw in some light cruisers of the Mark 1 variety, probably. Am I doing this wrong completely here? Yeah, I'm not focusing on boarding torpedoes. Like, I could be taking these on the ships that have torpedoes, but like you'll notice that I don't really have torpedoes. The battle barges, however, do have torpedoes, so I could be setting those up, but I want to get close to the enemy. I want to get in close and deal the damage that way. So we're not worrying about that particular upgrade, even though it's a pretty good one. Alright, just going to grab a couple of the Mark 1s there, and a couple of the Mark 3s, I think. Yeah, we'll get 2 of the Mark 3s. And then we're going to ignore the upgrades on them because I don't really care. Alright, let's go ahead and hit search there. Alright, we found one right away, which I like. That's nice. But yeah, it's really hard to catch people with Space Marines. They're not that fast. Their ships are not that good at dealing with ordnance or kiters. They're very, very hard countered by the way people currently play. But I think that they have got some good elements to them that can help them win certain fights. Alright, we're up against Space Dwarfs, who I'm guessing is actually Tau using a lot of Demiurge. Demiurge, I think, would actually get completely friggin' wrecked by... we're the Defender. Alright, I'm going to use this off-roll ship there, and I'm going to use this other one over here just as filler. And then we can only really afford to take one of these other ships like this over here, or something like that. So, I don't know why he set us as the defenders here, but maybe he's got the proper sort of... There is actually composition, like I said, that works against this. So maybe that's what's happened here, is my opponent does have that good composition, is going to be able to roll us over just by pounding our space station with the rail cannons. Which does happen, you know, it happens. Now, the space station, fortunately for us, does have the ability to produce fighters, so we should be a little bit better off than we otherwise could be. Let's go ahead and have this pop up lots of its abilities. I don't actually remember what this has for guns. Lance batteries, heavy plasma macro, blah blah blah. Ordnance, okay. So I don't know why my opponent put me on the defender side. He might have just misclicked. He might have wanted to put me on the attacker side, which would be a lot smarter. But because he did that, we've got a big advantage. I saw him thumbing over like this stuff, though, so it's a little bit difficult to tell what was going on there. Alright, so can we squeeze this Vanguard in anywhere? Alright, let's get all these guys ready. Anything that we can lightning strike or board action, we will want a board action. Don't have any real special abilities here, so that's an unfortunate thing, but we're going to go ahead and try and make it so that he can't easily outflank us. I wish there was like a button we could hold down so that this was faster. Okay, so he kind of has to come at us from like the front side angle there, from the right front. Just because there's so many mines over here that would take out a lot of his hit points. Now, if there's any faction where I wouldn't mind just going through mines, it's probably the Tau, if they have got lots and lots of the repair bots. They've got tons of repair drones. They're actually pretty obnoxious to deal with. Alright, so, you know, this is a pretty decent composition to be doing in this setup, just because, like, this stronghold here, it has a lot of hit points. Like, it's got 1,700 hit points there. It's got really good guns there. The lance batteries, it's got one to each side, dealing pretty good damage per second to every side, but that's kind of besides the point there.
Astartes vessel ready.
We've got, like, no protection whatsoever against ordnance, though, other than to huddle around our little defense platform here. Now, eventually we'll be getting a bunch of Cobra-class escorts as reinforcements, which is really nice.
Ready for battle. I am listening.
Oh shit. Alright, well, whatever.
Ready.
Okay, this is, my opponent has a lot of ships. Okay, so he's spammed out escort ships.
Hold course.
Yeah, he's got that sort of idea in mind. It's like, try and lure in your opponent to use their good ships. Unfortunately for him, I'm using my crappy ships. So, this is going to be okay for me. Alright. Now, it could be a good idea for me to just rush these ships in there, but, like, it's risky. It is really risky. We're going to turn off boarding actions automatically. These are all Nikasar Dows, so I think that he's got lots of carrier ships. They look like they've got upgraded... Yeah, these guys have got upgraded marker lights, so they've got really, really good abilities to deal damage to us with their... what's it called? Oh shit, I see a lot of incoming bombers there. One of them got through. Didn't deal any damage though, so that's fine.
Astartes vessel ready.
Alright, so what we're going to actually do is possibly... I think we can actually tank through these Nikasar Dows, actually.
Space Marines ready.
But these are actually like secondary ships. These are not my primary ships. So I don't really have to care too much if these guys get killed.
Ready for battle.
Alright. Hit his own ships a couple times there. Alright. Let's go ahead and launch some torpedoes here.
Moving to position. At your command. Tactical maneuver engaged.
Alright.
I am listening.
There's more of those Dows. Where are my Cobras? Get them in 10
Show us
seconds,
the enemy.
okay.
To where we are needed. Repositioning.
Just soaking up a few hits here. Yeah, another Niksar Dao coming in. Let's see if we get our Cobras.
Underway.
Man, they really scattered them out. Alright, let's get these guys set to firing flaming ammunition.
Tactical maneuver engaged.
He hasn't really dealt any damage to us here, but still don't necessarily want to just sit around and let his Niksars deal unlimited damage to us over time.
Underway. Prepare for impact.
So let's go ahead and get our ships over towards his main ships. Let's actually fire regular torpedoes.
Where we are needed.
Alright, where's our third Cobra here? Alright, this guy's going on just a suicide mission.
Of course.
Alright, Mantis came in and did some damage. Not that much, actually, so not too worried about this.
Astartes vessel ready. Moving to position.
Looks like he's retreating some of his ships there. Might be actually because of mutiny, is my guess.
Tactical maneuver engaged.
Alright, so we're going to go ahead and start slipping forward now.
Repositioning. Tactical maneuver engaged.
Yeah, he's definitely starting to suffer a little bit from those
Enemy in sight.
attrition things. Alright. There we go.
Main batteries fire.
Alright, he's using... Well, he lost that mostly because my ships aren't going to take damage in these situations, so... He's overestimating sort of the brokenness of the Tau ships there. Alright, we're
I am listening. Factory out machine spirit. To where we are needed.
gonna do fine here, I think.
Loading successful. Prepare for impact. Ready for battle.
Alright, let's get this around here.
I am listening.
Continue dealing this damage out
At
here.
your command. Hold course.
Alright, so my
Show us
opponent
the enemy.
is probably going to capitulate here. I don't know, but it feels like it.
Underway. Tactical maneuver engaged. Only
Just want to continue destroying as many ships as we can here.
hold course. Space Marines ready.
Alright,
Astartes vessel ready. Moving to position. All servitors and tech marines.
I'm going to let him do that ram there. Alright. So that was Space Marines. I got lucky on his ordnance not being necessarily up to par there. I think he was really hoping that he would be able to knock out a couple of my critical ships in this particular one. But it felt like he didn't take his best ships either. Like, it really did feel as though he was holding back his best ships so that he could try and sort of get that kind of round going. But, yeah, like, we used weaker ships of the line there and everything like that. Our bombard cannons really were good at taking out the Niksar Daos. I think that the Niksar Dao is an amazingly good ship there. It's really good for dealing tons and tons of damage to capital ships there over time. The problem was that like his capitals weren't really up to it. Like those bombardment things coming through there. One of the things is like you need to have the really big bomber wave coming in from something like the custodian. If you got that, then it becomes much more easy to wipe out an entire ship's fighter wing and then still have bombers left. That's not really what happened there, so we're going to go ahead and set this to a good old cruiser clash. I think that would be relatively okay here, and we're going to go ahead and pick our better fleet here. So, or we could actually, let's give this a try. Let's see if we can take this. So we could take all four of these guys, but I definitely feel like we want our chapter master in on this, so we'll go with that. This one and this one, Then we'll probably leave our librarian, actually, or no, or whatever it's called. And then we'll just take a couple, or just one of these, actually. It looks like Jesus. Alright, so let's take a Nova. So he'll have his better ships in this one as well, I think. But we did take out some ones that did have some upgrades, so we're not completely out of this either. But yeah, these are much more serious ships. Alright, so let's go ahead and get ready, lined up here. Oh, is my opponent just capitulating? Yeah, my opponent has capitulated. He didn't have enough ships, I'm guessing, that were capable of fighting this. I think actually that last one, that gigantic swarm of escorts that he had at the start there, was actually almost entirely just from hooks, which really helped him out there. So, yeah, that was going to be an interesting match there. Alright, so we get 2 for 2 with our Space Marines, which is pretty interesting. Like, the thing about the Space Marines is that I think they're actually really quite weak against the Tau, and their gigantic ordnance spam, but they're not necessarily weak against what my opponent took there. They're actually quite good at dealing with escorts. Their tough armor means that those escorts, tiny little piddly shots, aren't necessarily going to deal that much damage at them. The Tau torpedoes deal less damage than normal torpedoes, and it's pretty easy to hit Space Marines with normal torpedoes, which, you know, deal a little bit more damage per second. So I think that regular torpedoes are a better option against the Space Marines, especially because it lets you fire them from across the map. They can't repair it very effectively or efficiently. So I think that's, you know, that's a little bit bad, but at the same time, being able to just really hammer in lots and lots of torpedo hits from long range is really, really good. But yeah, we never got to see our upgraded battle barge Mark I in action here. Look at this beauty. Very, very good ship. Very, very powerful sort of ship there. Anyway, that's the Space Marines in rank. I think this is sort of one of the better setups for them. Again, like, you could focus on the cheaper ships and take a cheap ship cruiser mix. The problem is that you can't really take these guys and have marks on them, so you end up either, like, I could have just taken these 4 here, and that pretty much would have been it. I wouldn't have been able to afford any of these Mark 1s. So, you know, you kind of can't really mix and match with Space Marines. You kind of just have to take all your strike cruisers and your battle barge, and that's kind of how things go with them. But it's a fairly strong combination there. You can get by with some scenarios without using your upgraded ships as well, just because they're naturally quite durable. It's just if you're up against a lot of carriers that are being used in that sort of carrier effectiveness way. And you have to remember that my opponent took a lot of his ships were carriers. His capital ships were carriers. He had 4 of them, but they were the light carrier variety that cost 179 points each. They're not really that effective. Actually, I think he only had 3 of them, but they're not really that effective as carriers. What they're effective at is, you know, they come with their own sort of tank that you can put out front scout with, but their carry capacity is the same as a Hellbringer, so they're not actually that much carrier damage. The torpedoes that they're firing from the 1 Siccia, I assume, that was mixed in there. Just not really going to get through the turret defenses, plus all of the strike cruiser, the Stormhawk squadrons that I had, even though I didn't have enough of those. And I found that they were probably actually dealing a lot more damage to these ships, just sort of incidentally, than I would have thought. But it wasn't, you know, huge amounts of damage like a Custodian would do, or even a Demiurge Stronghold does with its bomber waves. Tends to be a little bit more damaging. Anyway, that is our look at the Space Marines. I hope you found this enjoyable, and of course, as always, I hope to see you all next time.